Hey folks, so I figured I'd shoot a quick video and talk about the antenna that I've been using a lot lately. You've seen it in a couple of my videos, but I kind of wanted to go over the antenna and talk about some of my likes and dislikes, why I've been using it a lot lately. It's inside this Tough Possum Gear Shackleton haversack. I don't normally keep it in here, but everything fit in here beautifully, so this made it easy to carry outside. Oddly enough, so if you're not familiar with Tough Possum Gear, Jerry Miller, the guy who owns the company, does an awesome job. His stuff is great. So if you're looking for good pouches, or like you're looking for like this thing makes like a good briefcase, that kind of stuff, he makes really good stuff. But let me pop this open. Let me talk about the antenna that I've been using a lot, and then I'm going to set it up and I'm going to talk about some of the things that I like about it and some of the things I don't like so much about it. My coax reel, you guys have seen that in other videos. This thing's awesome. It's from the QRP store. This will hold up to 50 feet of, I think, RG316. I think I've got 33 feet on here. This thing's awesome. That stuff I don't need right now. That's for the camera when I get rolling. I got my Nano VNA in here so you can see what it looks like when we tune this thing. We'll see what kind of tune we can get on it. And then the antenna itself is the Gabil GRA-7350TC. Like I said, I've used this in other videos recently, and I kind of want to talk about this antenna because I've never been a vertical antenna guy, but I'm kind of sold with this thing. I really like it, and I'll talk about why I like this particular antenna compared to some of the other verticals I've used. One thing I will say with this antenna is it comes, well, it doesn't come with, this is separate. This is the tripod, and people balk at the price on this thing, okay? The tripod is like $100 and something bucks just for the tripod. I'm just gonna tell you right up front, the tripod's worth all of the price of admission and then some. This thing is built so well, it's not even funny. It's built phenomenally well. It's got detents on the legs so you can get the angles correct. It's a tank. It's tiny. I mean, if you look at how small this thing is, if I fold those legs up and hold it in my hand, that's the entire tripod. It's tiny. These legs extend. You'll see when I set this up and extend the legs, they extend pretty decently, but this thing packs down real small. So it's great if you're gonna pack in someplace and you wanna pack your antenna in. This doesn't weigh a ton. It is aluminum. It's built, like I said, it's built like a tank, but it doesn't weigh a ton. So when I get this thing all set up, you'll see what I mean. And then in the bag here, we've got the antenna. So let me put the camera down here for a second so I can get everything out of this bag. So in the bag, we have a number of things. So we've got the whip. The whip is very small. I'm not sure how long it is extended. I'll look it up and let you know. But it's very, very small. You've got your coil. All right, so this is good from 40 meters all the way up to 10 meters. You've got an 80 meter coil, which I haven't used yet. I don't use 80 meters a ton. Usually when I use it, I'm using it here at home at night. So I don't really use 80 meters a ton, but it does come with an 80 meter coil as well. And then it comes with a little rubber insulator that goes in between the whip and the rest of the antenna. So what I'm gonna do is, I mean, that's the whole system. All right, there's nothing to it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set this all up. And I'll show you what it looks like to tune this thing, because the tuning can be a little funky, and that's one of the things that you need to be aware of when you buy an antenna like this. So we'll set it up. You'll see what it looks like all set up. We'll talk a little bit about the tuning. And like I said, some of the things that I really like about this and some of the things I really don't. So I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so I've got this thing set up and I couldn't find the exact length of the whip. It's not very long. Now let me step over here so you can see it against the sky. I mean, it's not very tall at all. Okay, it's a pretty small antenna. The overall height of this thing is 2.6 meters, and that's from the tip of the antenna all the way down to the base of the tripod. And that's sort of that's what the manufacturer says, but I'm not sure at what length that is with the tripod legs. These tripod legs telescope. All right, you've got your adapter down here at the bottom. There's a collar here that you can loosen to allow you to move the coil up and down, and then you tighten it up to lock your adjustment in. You'll see that there's a scale, I don't know if you can see that, on the coil here, and we're currently at a little over 4 on that scale. That scale doesn't really mean a whole lot. I'm assuming it's in some sort of measurements. I don't know if that's maybe centimeters, but it doesn't really relate to anything that has to do with frequency. So you kind of have to guess roughly where on the scale you need to be in order to get your SWR right. But here's the thing. Well, first things first, that's a sticker. Okay, so it's gonna come off. I don't really care because it isn't very useful, because you can't duplicate this all the time, right? I can't set this exactly where it is and get my SWR right every time, because conditions change, right? I may not have my counterpoise length exactly the same. You'll see what I mean in a minute here. And you can add, I think, 4 or 5 counterpoises on this. It comes with these nuts, and there are holes in the base of the coil, so you can attach counterpoises. I've only got one currently attached, but the way this works, you've got your whip, your coil, and then there's a rubber washer, and then your adapter on your tripod. And right now I've got it set up for 20 meters. So you can see I've got my counterpoise. I've only got one counterpoise on this right now. One counterpoise coming up, and I've just kind of got it wrapped up out here. That's roughly the right length to get me to 20 meters. Again, it's not an exact science. It kind of takes some trial and error, but I found that about half of this counterpoise that I've got this counterpoise for 40 meters, and that's roughly half of it. That gets me on pretty good at 20 meters here. So if I go over to my Nano VNA over here on my coax, and I could probably get this closer, but this was sort of as good as I could get it at the moment. So let's see if we can get that so you can see it here. Got a heck of a glare. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I've got a 1.215 SWR. I'm sort of right in the middle of the 20 meter band. I'm at 14,175. Actually, I can probably go a little lower. Yeah, it'll go slightly lower than that. It'll go down to 1.2, and you can get it lower with some finagling, but it does take a little bit of playing with them. That's one of the things that I don't like about this antenna, and this is a thing with vertical antennas. It's not just this antenna, but it's antennas like this in general. They do take a little fiddling with to get them to tune, right? So if I want to change bands, I need to disconnect my radio, get my Nano VNA out, hook it up to the antenna, change my counterpoise length, come out and fiddle with the length of that coil until I get the SWR in some semblance of, reasonableness. And that can take a little doing. So like if I'm in the middle of an activation and I want to switch, let's say from 40 meters to 30 meters, I got to get this thing out. I got to set my stimulus up on my Nano VNA to get everything right. And then I've got to start playing with the coil length and the counterpoise length until I get my SWR someplace reasonable. So like I said, right now, I've got the entire 20 meter band in this. So I'm going from 14 to 14.350. And you can see right in the middle of the band there, I'm at, like I said, about 1.2, which is perfectly reasonable. We've got a little over 42 ohms. All right. So, it's really not horrible to tune, but it does take a little of messing around. And I'll show you what I mean. So what I'm going to do right now is I've got it set up for 20 meters. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tune this up for 40 meters. And I'm going to let you watch me do it. I'm going to put the camera on the table over there. And I'm going to let you watch me do this. And you'll see it's going to take me a minute of finagling around, messing around with the length of the coil, messing around with the counterpoise length. It's going to take me a minute, but I'll get this thing tuned up on 40 meters. And we'll see what we can get as far as a decent SWR is concerned. So let me get you guys set up on the table here. And I'll kind of let you watch me do this. And like I said, this might take me a minute. All right, so we'll see what we can do. The other thing is the SWR changes as you approach and leave the antenna. So you do kind of have to move away from the antenna to check the SWR, because I'll affect it if I'm up close to the antenna. If I set the Nano VNA to 40 meters, so we'll start lengthening this thing. The SWR should start falling, and it is. that's not amazing. I don't know if I'm going to get it much lower right now though without messing around too much. Little tiny movements affect this thing a lot. Yeah, so the SWR is not fantastic, but I'm not going to spend all day trying to get it set. I can get it down 1.2 or thereabouts. Right now we're at about 1.7, which is not amazing. All right, you can get it down much lower than that, with messing around with the counterpoise length and the length of the coil. And sometimes getting that counterpoise up off the ground helps too. But I'm not going to waste all day trying to get it set up. But you can see it took me it took me a minute or two just to get it down to 1.7. Like I said, I could get it much lower than that, but it'd probably take me another couple of minutes. And that's kind of where the problem lies when you're using an antenna like this to do an activation. Like I said, if I want to switch bands, it might take me 4 or 5 minutes by the time I get the radio disconnected, get the nano VNA out, hook it up, play with my counterpoise length, play with the coil length, get everything tuned back up and get back on the air. It might be 5 minutes, right? That's not a big deal if you're just hunting around the bands, but if you're on an activation, that's a considerable amount of time. With that being said, I really like this antenna for what it is. It's very small, it's very light, it's fairly easy to tune. If I'm using my KX2, which has been the radio I've been using a lot lately, that's got a tuner, so if I can't get this where I want it exactly, I'll just hit the tuner and get it dialed right in. But if I'm using, let's say, the TX500, I do need to spend a little bit more time in getting this thing tuned up a little better. But I think the pros outweigh the cons on this thing. It's reasonably priced. The antenna itself, I think, is 139 bucks, something like that. The tripod is like another 100 and something bucks. Okay, now like I said, the tripod is pricey, but it is really, really well made. I've heard people balk at the price on that thing. I promise you, if you hold one, you'll understand why it costs so much. They are really, really nice. It comes with all the fittings to do your counterpoises. You'll have to make your own counterpoises, but it comes with all of the nuts that go on the base there for the counterpoises. It does come with a couple of different adapters here. There are two different styles of this. There's this one, which is what, 3/8 24 or whatever, I don't know what it is, 3/8, whatever the normal antenna thread pitch and diameter is for like a mobile antenna. That's what this is. There's also like a I think it's an SO239 maybe, that screws on here. There's two different bases. There's this one and then there's the other one. It depends on which one you buy. They'll come with the tripod comes with both adapters, so regardless of which antenna you get, the tripod will work with both of them. So like I said, all in all, it's a pretty nice little antenna. It's a vertical, so it is a little finicky, but it does give you that characteristic vertical low takeoff angle. So I noticed that I've worked France and Great Britain and everything on this little tiny vertical when I'm out in the woods with 5 watts. With that, I don't know if you can see it up there, but my end-fed random wires up there across the yard, I can work stations that far, but not as reliably as you can on a vertical. So it's good for that kind of stuff. It's real light, it's real small, it packs up real easy, it's very high quality. The whip is a little fragile, but again, it's a telescoping whip. They're all like that. It's not as sturdy as, you know, like one of the Chameleons or something, but it gets the job done. You do have to be a little careful with it. It is a little lightweight. But again, that's the idea behind this, right? This is something you throw in a backpack and take out in the woods. If you were doing, you know, if you were going to set up for the weekend and wanted a nice sturdy vertical, this probably wouldn't be what I would choose. But for something you want to throw in a pack, this thing's awesome. So I just figured I'd shoot a little bit of video so you guys could see what this antenna was like. I know people have had questions about trying to get this thing tuned, and like I said, it is a little finicky. You do need to spend some time getting the length of that coil just right, getting the length of that counterpoise just right. I'm sure if I went out and changed the length of that counterpoise a little bit, I could get this down under 1.5, no problem, but I don't want to waste the next 5 minutes trying to do it. You guys would be bored to tears. So at any rate, like I said, this is the Gabil GRA-7350TC. I know that's hard to see because the label is in there, or the directions are in there. You can get this from the manufacturer. You can get it on Amazon. I got mine on Amazon. But it is a really nice antenna. And like I said, if you're somebody who, like me, who likes to go out in the woods and do portable operations and you want to play with a vertical, this is a really good choice. Is it as good as, you know, maybe an end fed half wave or something? It depends. It depends on what you're trying to do. This sets up faster. You don't have to worry about throwing a line up in the trees. Maybe if you're someplace where you can't put a line in a tree, you might want to run a vertical. Like I said, that low takeoff angle is nice. But it is a little more finicky. There's more setup time is involved in trying to get it tuned, right? You throw an end-fed, ren-fed half wave up in the tree and it's tuned up, ready to go. You don't have to worry about it. This thing, you got to play with it a little bit. And you do need something to measure SWR with, right? So like I said, I take my Nano VNA out in the woods with me. You might have a rig expert or something, whatever you use, but you do need something to measure your SWR. If you know roughly where it needs to be on the scale on that antenna, you can get it on the ballpark, and if your radio will show you what SWR is, you can fiddle around until you get it right. But that's a lot of work to get this thing tuned up. You really kind of do need something to do to measure SWR so you can get this thing tuned up correctly. So like I said, that's the antenna. Those are my likes and my dislikes. It's real light. It's small. It's really well built. It's relatively easy to tune up. Like I said, my dislikes, it is a little finicky to tune. It does have that sticker on the base, and that'll eventually come off. But like I said, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day, because where I've got it set right now, if I set this up again someplace else, it's probably going to be different. Right, how conductive the ground is, or where I've got that counterpoise, those all change my SWR. So at any rate, that's the antenna. I just figured I'd give you guys a look at it. If you've got any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and I'll try to answer them for you. I try to answer everybody who's got questions in the comments. So if you leave one, I will do my best to get back to you. So with that being said, I hope you found it informative. I'll shoot a video probably this weekend about the kit that I've been taking out in the woods recently. I haven't done a ton of activations recently, between the weather being pretty garbagey here, and then the past 2 weeks I was in Spain, so I wasn't doing any POTA or anything over there. My family probably would have killed me if I brought a radio. So at any rate, I'll show you that kit, what I've been using a lot lately in the woods. But with that being said, I appreciate everybody watching. I hope you found it informative, and like I said, if you're looking for a really good, reasonably priced, very small vertical antenna for portable ops, it's hard to go wrong with this thing. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. Have a good one. I'll see you on the next one in 7-3.